Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. A little earlier than scheduled due to some internet interference we're going to be having later. So we're recording this a little bit earlier. But what we're going to be going through today is the best EU alternatives following the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a heads up straight away of what that is. It's the Portugal Golden Visa for the reasons that will become very clear to you. So what I'm going to do is just going to share my screen here. And we'll go through this with you. So people may be aware or not aware, but the Spanish Golden Visa was withdrawn on April the 3rd. So it is no longer available in any form. So people now are looking and thinking, well, what are the best alternatives that are out there? So as I said, we're going to be talking about the Portugal Golden Visa, and the reasons for this will become very clear. However, I will say at this point, we're now the 22nd of July today. We do know that the Portugal Golden Visa will be changing. Okay, there was elections in Portugal a couple of months ago. The AD coalition have got in terms of running the country, and they've already said at the outset what they want to do is tighten the naturalization requirements for Portugal, which will become clear as I talk through this presentation on what that may mean. The changes may not be drastic, but they won't be as beneficial probably as what they are now. That's what we're thinking. So I'll go through that as we chat through the presentation. So my name's Sam Daynes. I'm a partner here at Hullborn Assets. On the screen here, you've got my WhatsApp number there, which is a UK number, but I am actually based between Portugal and Spain. We've got an office here in Portugal and an office in Spain. My WhatsApp number is 447969059122. So if you have any questions that are personal to yourself, because obviously we're doing this at a relatively high level, but if you do have any questions which you want to go through with me, you can WhatsApp me. If you want booking a free consultation, you can WhatsApp me and I can sort that out for you. Alternatively, feel free to email me. My email is sam.danes@hullbornassets.com. So again, if you have any questions, if you want to talk through your personal situation, please feel free to drop me a line. I've also put a QR code there on the screen. So if you scan that, you can actually access my diary and book yourself straight in. As I say, these consultations are all completely free, but we can maybe go in a little bit more detail about maybe what your situation is, particularly bearing in mind that we know that this will be changing the Portugal Golden Visa. So if there's anything in this presentation that is of interest for you, please be mindful of the fact that time is a little bit against us on the terms that we're talking about now, but I'll go into that in a bit more detail. I do a webinar normally every month. You can look at my YouTube channel, which is at World CBI. CBI is Citizenship by Investment. And you can see some of my other videos on there as well. And I'll continue to give you updates each month on what is happening. Okay, so with no further ado, what we'll do is we'll talk through a little bit about who we are first, so you know exactly who Hullborn Assets are and Hullborn Past if you haven't come across it before. So to give you a bit of background, Hullborn Assets started way back in 1998, so a long time ago. It's a British family firm. We've got over 500 employees all around the globe, so we're multi-countries. We've got 20 international offices. We've got one in Portugal. We've got one in Spain as well. So I work between those two offices, and we have in a region of 25,000 clients globally. So we're a very respected firm. We're a wealth management firm, and that's how we started. However, around 7, 8 years ago, a lot of our clients were saying, well, they wanted to look at the very best investments, but also with the idea that they could get global mobility attached to that. And global mobility is really talking about the Golden Visa, because certain countries will allow you to invest a certain amount of money into that country, and in return, you get a Golden Visa which will allow you to live there, which I'll come on to. So for us, it was a logical step. We need to look at what the very best investments are for our clients, and that will also give them a visa to live in a particular country of their choice. So it made sense. For us, investment is the priority. So we look to get you the very best investments that are out there for that particular Golden Visa program. Now, we do all the Golden Visa programs, which you'll see on the next slide, not just Portugal, but I will be concentrating mainly on Portugal today. But as I say, if anybody watching this has an interest in any of the other programs, then feel free to contact me and we can talk about that as well. In 2023, we did over 300 Portugal golden visas, and we were actually the #1 agent for Portugal. So we did more golden visas than any other firm in Portugal. So we know what we're doing with regards to this, and we have a 100% success rate. So every application we put through has gone through. We know exactly what we need in order to get an application through. So anybody applying for us can have that confidence as well. And very importantly, we did a whole process from start to finish. So the idea for us really is to be a one-stop shop. So we can get solicitors, we can get your tax number, we can open the bank accounts, and we can do all this remotely for a power of attorney as well. So you don't actually physically have to come to Portugal, because we can do all that remotely. But the idea is really to have us working for you in doing all the different areas of the process. We're rated excellent on Trustpilot. We've won numerous industry awards as well. Myself, I've been working for Hullborn Assets for around 6 years now, just coming up to 6 years, so for a long time. And I focus specifically on the golden visa programs that are out there. So what I do, if I talk through the different available programs. Now, what I'm going to try to do is make this quite a busy slide, but I try to make it as sort of clear as possible. With regard to golden visas, you can have a citizenship program, or you can have a residency program. Now, a citizenship is effectively you becoming a passport holder of that country. So you have the right to vote, essentially similar to if you had been born in that country. So that's a citizenship program. A residency program will give you a residency card, and that will give you the right to live, to work, and to retire in that particular country, but it doesn't give you as many rights as citizenship. Now, quite often a residency program can become citizenship. So once you've held that residency card for a certain period of time, you can then convert it to citizenship, and it depends on what program you're in, so what country program you're in, and I'll come on to that. So the reason I'm saying that, so on the left-hand side, if you can see my cursor here, you've got citizenship programs. Now, there isn't any European citizenship programs. There used to be, and this is where it's certainly sort of worth paying attention to this. Malta did a citizenship program, so it was what they called a golden passport program. So in return for investing quite a substantial amount of money, and I'm talking around sort of 700,000-800,000, and other criteria such as having to have a house in the country, having to have a certain income coming in. There was a number of sort of caveats to it. But essentially, if you ticked all those boxes, you, within a very short amount of time, and I'm talking a year or less, you could actually get a Malta passport. Now, the advantage of a Malta passport would be that you could then live anywhere in the EU, and it was, you know, a great program for people who had the money. However, the EU looked at that program and started an investigation, if you like, into that program a number of years ago, and it concluded a couple of months ago that it was unlawful. It's not, the way they sort of positioned it is, it's not within the values of the EU to be able to buy citizenship. So Malta have now looked at that, and that's now withdrawn. So that program is not available. Other citizenship programs, Antigua, you can see there, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, Vanuatu, etc. They don't give you that access in the EU, which I'm sure a lot of you are here because of. So the programs on the left-hand side, you can get a passport for them countries, but obviously that doesn't give you the right to live and reside in the EU. Most EU programs are residency programs. And Portugal stands out on this because it's a residency program, but in as little as 5 years, you can then convert your golden visa, your residency card, into a Portuguese passport in only 5 years. Furthermore, during that 5 years, you don't have to live in Portugal. In fact, all you have to do is spend 1 week per year in Portugal for that 5 years, and then in year 5, you can have a passport. So you don't even have to become tax resident of Portugal. So for a lot of people, that's a very intriguing offer, because other programs you're looking at more like 7 to 10 years. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video, where we feel changes may be coming is in relation to this 5 years before you get a passport. because at the moment that's what it stands. But the idea of the AD coalition coming in is that they want to tighten these naturalisation requirements and increase this 5 years to maybe 7 years or 10 years. Now, we don't know any of the details of this. It's going to become clearer, I'd imagine, around, I think it's around the middle of September. We should have more information on this, because obviously any sort of legislation going through does take quite a considerable amount of time. You're going to have draft it a number of times. You're going to have opposition, going against it and wanting changes. But this is what we think will happen. But as it stands at the moment, it's business as usual. It's all exactly the same. It's 5 years. And if you, in terms of what would happen if you get in now, if you like, and then these changes come in, the way Portugal works with grandfathering, it's called, is that it will honour the people that are already in on the terms that they are in. But anybody new coming in after that would be subject to whatever those changes were. So I'll sort of talk a little bit through this. Now, the first thing to say on the slide at the top here is that the Spanish people who are watching this because of the Spanish Golden Visa as well, and any information on that, the Spanish Golden Visa was officially withdrawn on April the 3rd. It doesn't exist at all. And that's not just with regards to property, investing in property. It's any type of investments, any donations, any investing in funds, anything like that. Spain doesn't have a Golden Visa program anymore. So the Spanish scheme was really, really good. Now Portugal does, and Portugal has, in a lot of respects, a more interesting proposition than Spain did. Because if you think about it, if your end goal is to live in Spain, in 5 years you could convert your Golden Visa for Portugal into a passport without having ever lived in Portugal. And then, of course, you can live, work, and reside anywhere in the EU because you would have that Portuguese passport, which I'll come on to. So if you see on the right-hand side, we've got residency programs in Canada, Greece, Hungary, Latvia, Malta, and the USA. Okay, so these are all residency programs. Portugal, highlighted there, is only 5 years until you can get your citizenship, so you can get your passport. Now, the minimum investment in Portugal is 500,000. Now, you can actually do it for less than that. There are a number of things, particularly that we have, sort of unique to ourselves, where you can actually do it for as little as 325 or even potentially less. And that is done by actually having interest from the investment paid up front at the beginning. And there's other ways that we can structure it. But if you're looking at the 500,000 figure, that is what the official amount is. But by structuring it in a certain way, and investments that we've looked at, we can do it for a lot less. So 5 years, as I said, before you get your passport, you only need to spend 5 weeks in Portugal per 5 years. So 1 week per year. Holidaying in Portugal is obviously not the most difficult thing to do. But what again makes it interesting is you can tag your whole family onto that one application. So basically, children up to the age of 21, so dependent children, if you like, can be tagged in on that. If they're over 21, by the way, they can still look at that. So it's still potential we could do that, but we have to prove that they're dependent. So they might be in a full-time education. We know what we need to do to sort of prove that, if you like. So we can help you with your individual situation. But yeah, you can have as many children as you like on there. You can also include dependent parents as well, and obviously your spouse. So essentially, you can have one investment for 325 or 500,000, whatever you're looking at investing into, and we've done applications where we've had 8 or 9 people all on one application, which means all these 8 or 9 people could have an EU passport in 5 years without actually having to ever go to Portugal for more than 1 week per year. So it's really good for that point of view. And the Portugal passport is ranked the 5th in the world, so it's a very popular program. As I said, the thing to bear in mind here, where I keep sort of reminding you coming back to this, it's because of what happened in Malta and because of the Portuguese elections. That is kind of a perfect storm, if you like, which means that the program is likely to change, because although it's a residency program, the fact that it offers citizenship in only 5 years, it kind of makes it a little bit like a citizenship program. So with the EU ruling, it means that a lot of these countries on here will be looking closely at what they have. And obviously Portugal does have something that it's not really requiring you to spend a lot of time in the country or to wait very long for the passport. And that's what, as I say, we know will be changing. So just bear that in mind if it's something that you are interested in. Okay, so just talking through Portugal's golden visa permit and what exactly that is. Okay, it's a 5-year citizenship by investment program. So it's residency by investment, but it turns to citizenship after the 5 years. And it's for anybody who is a non-EU national. Obviously, if you're an EU national, you wouldn't want to do it anyway because you'd already have that EU passport. The Portugal residency permit, the golden visa as we call it, gives you the right to live, to work, and to study in Portugal. And it allows free circulation in Europe's Schengen areas. So what I mean by that, for example, is I've got a residency for Spain, actually, and I go between Portugal and Spain. When you go across the border, for anybody who's not aware, our two offices are about 3.5 hours apart, which you can drive. And obviously, when you get to the Portugal border, there isn't any, you don't have any checks on your passport. You just drive through. It's free movement throughout the EU. So it's really good from that point of view as well. Now, the Portugal Golden Visa was actually introduced back in 2012. It's already had well over 10,000 applications approved, and it's now the #1 European residency and citizenship program. It started back in 2012. So if you imagine that 5 years we're talking about, 2012, 2017 meant that first lot of people investing were then able to go and get their passport, and that's happened. So we've had the first confirmed cases for passports being given back in 2018. So that confirms your pathway to citizenship. So it shows that people that have gone through that process. And obviously since then, there has been lots and lots of people who now have the Portuguese passport. So it's a really good program for that point of view. And the Portugal Golden Visa remains the only route to an EU passport without a minimum 6-month stay at this investment level. So any other EU program at this investment level would require you to become tax resident and spend more than 6 months in the country. The Portugal Golden Visa doesn't require you to do that. So where that can be for a lot of my clients quite interesting, as I mentioned before, people that might be interested in Spain or Italy or France or wherever that may be, but maybe not Portugal. If you invested now into an investment, even without other than having your holiday for 1 week per year to Portugal, in 5 years' time, you can then get your passport and live anywhere in the EU. So whether that's Italy, France, Spain, whatever, you could do that without actually ever living in Portugal. So really, really good for that Portugal. Anybody looking to live in the EU, it's the perfect program for you. Now, the reasons to choose Portugal for people looking to live there and people who do want to live in Portugal, it's a very beautiful place. As I say, I do the drive quite a lot between our two offices, and the Portuguese people are fantastic. The weather is obviously lovely. The beaches are lovely as well. The language is relatively easy to learn as well. So this is a reason a lot of people look at Portugal. I say relatively easy. I've picked up some, but not much. Location and accessibility. Well, obviously the location is fantastic. You're bordering on Spain here, so you could drive throughout the EU very easy. They've got world-class education as well. So the Portuguese education system is a very high standard. So anybody looking with children to move across can actually then use the education in Portugal. There is favourable tax treatment, and that could be for US citizens, but also for citizens of other countries as well. People may have heard of NHR, non-habitual residency. That was an old tax regime that's gone now. That was withdrawn a couple of years ago in Portugal, but it was replaced with what they called NHR 2.0. Not as many people would be entitled to that, but there are certain professions where you would be, and it can have favourable tax treatment. As I mentioned before, though, you don't have to become a tax resident in Portugal to ultimately get your passport. For those who are looking to do that, there can be tax benefits. The obvious one is quality of life. The quality of life in Portugal is really good. As I say, the people are very friendly, the weather's very nice, the beaches are beautiful, and it's just a lovely country driving through it. I mean, I was in Porto a few weeks ago. It's beautiful. Obviously, the Algarve is the bit that's sort of nearest to us here in Spain. So, that's where we spend a lot of time. It's a safe haven for investments as well. And this is really important. As I mentioned before, investment for us is the priority. So we need to know where money's been invested is safe. Now, I'll come on to the different type of investments you can do with Portugal, but certainly for investments, the regulation and everything like that in Portugal is strict. So any investments you're investing into are structured well and are have a good level of compliance to them. You've also got EU healthcare living in Portugal as well, which is another benefit for a lot of people. It's a very good healthcare system. And only 7 days per year for your citizenship. As I keep mentioning, because this is the real good thing about Portugal as it stands at the moment, that you only have to spend 7 days, as I keep saying, per year for that 5 years in order to ultimately then convert to a passport. Once you've got your passport, you obviously don't need then to keep the investment that you did. So for that 5 years, we look for an investment strategy for 5 years, and then at the end of the 5 years, you can exit from that investment and you'll have your EU passport. As I said before, we do the whole process for this from start to finish. So we would actually help you get your passport as well. We do all the, as I say, the whole process, which I'll come on to. It's a lot of points to the process, and part of that will be to open you a bank account in Portugal, to get you a tax number in Portugal, to appoint solicitors in Portugal, and just to get you through the whole process. Now, in terms of the most popular destinations in Portugal, and then this is relevant in terms of where we look for investments. We've got Porto. As I said, it's very multicultural, brilliant city destination. You've got Lisbon, which is probably what most people are familiar with. The Algarve is really the beach and the sort of beautiful sandy resorts. And then you've got Madeira for the islands as well. So we look for a lot of investments and options within these areas. So who qualifies for this golden visa? So as I mentioned before, all non-EU citizens can apply, okay? You've got to have a clean criminal record certificate from the country of origin and from the country of your official residence. So again, we'll talk you and help you through this, but you do need to have a clean criminal record. People do often say, what if I have a small driving offence? Well, that normally wouldn't affect it. But, you know, in terms of some of the other more serious crimes, if you like, then obviously you won't be able to apply. But we would look at that for you individually and tell you if you needed help with that. You need to make an eligible investment in Portugal under the Portuguese Golden Visa Programme. Now, we will come on to what these are, because anybody that is familiar with the Portugal Golden Visa, you used to be able to invest in property, and that used to be an eligible investment. But property was actually withdrawn 2 years ago, so it is not an option, which I'll come on to, but it was previously. But there are other investment options, which are very good investment options, but you can't do property. So I'll go on to what these investments you can do are. And you need to then stay in Portugal for only 14 days consecutive or non-consecutive every 2 years. So that's basically your 1 week per year. You could actually do 2 weeks 1 year and no weeks the next year. So a 2 week holiday and then not go the next year. So it's so flexible from that point of view. And as I say, if all you have to do is come to Portugal for a holiday, then great. And the whole process of this can be done without you actually needing to come to Portugal. There's no age requirements for the golden visa. There's no education requirements to get it. There's no work skill requirements, and there is no income required. So where some people look at other types of visas, like a D7 visa and various other visas that you might look at instead of the golden visa, the problem with a lot of these for people that the process is more clunky, and also the requirements are higher. So quite often you do need to prove that you've got a certain amount of income coming in, and a number of other caveats to that, which makes it difficult for a lot of people. So a lot of people who've sort of looked at other visas have ultimately looked at the golden visa as being the best one, providing it is affordable for you. Which family members can be included? Obviously, this is very important for people. So we've got one investment amount. So you have the lead applicant. And then attached to that, we will put however many people you want on there, but they have to be a spouse, your minor children and incapacitated children under the custody of the applicants, children who have been adopted, and that such decision is recognised in Portugal. So where we're going with that is it obviously don't have to be your biological children. They can be adopted children. Again, we have to provide evidence for that, but that would obviously, is what you'd expect. Children of age who are dependent, provided they are single and studying. So if you've got a son or daughter who's at university, then they can be considered even if they are over 21. We have to prove that they're in education. It's not difficult to do that. First degree ascendants, so things such as parents, providing again that they are dependent. So over a certain age, it's quite easy to argue they can be, but again, we know what you need to prove that. Minor siblings under the custody of the applicant if recognised in Portugal. So again, minor siblings as well. So there's a lot of people that can be added on to this application. If you've got any questions about your own personal situation, then obviously just reach out and we can let you know. And it's a little bit there with regards to who's considered relatives from non-marital partnerships. So you could be a life partner with registered partnership under the law of proof providing of living together. So you've got to provide proof that you are living together, but you don't obviously have to specifically be married. You can be in a partnership as well. So there's lots of applicants that can go on one application, one investment amount, okay? Another busy slide here, but this is important. This is the golden visa process and how it actually works. So if someone was interested in doing this, and I'll come on to different investment options that are available and how that would work, but we essentially onboard people. So we send out, if someone's interested, we'll send you out a client agreement, you know, the quotes, everything, so that you know the total cost. We then, once we get to go ahead, yes, we're going ahead, we have to obtain your NIF numbers, which is your tax numbers, which we do for you. We have to open and validate a bank account, which again, we do for you. And this all normally takes about, if you look at here, well, I'm sort of around this end here, it takes about 1.5 to 2 months to actually get to the point where, yes, we've got the investment set up, and I'll come on to what these investments can be. And that's not normally, it can be quicker, it can be longer, but I think if you're looking around 2 months, that's realistic. Now, once we get to that point, we've got the investment set up, as you can see here, we then submit this for you online. We submit your application for the residency permit. Again, online, we do it. Now, it's important to say at this point, your 5 years starts from the submission of the online forms, not from when you're given the residency permit. So, because obviously, if it takes quite a long time sometimes to get the permit, it's getting quicker. It used to take a very long time, and now Portugal have actually looked at it. They've made it all on digital now, whereas before it used to be paper-based. They've increased the amount of staff working on these applications, and they're aiming in the coming months to have all the backlog cleared as well. But at times, it was taking a lot longer than 12 months to get your residency card, and obviously where that became difficult for people is until you had that residency card, your 5 years wouldn't start. But Portugal changed that to say, well, actually, we'll start it from when you submit the application, because that way it's more fair. So if it is delayed or it takes a while, you don't need to worry. So your 5 years starts from that submission. Okay, right. We then do all the other bits. So it's normally around 12 to 13 months. And then you have a biometrics appointment. Now, with regards to your biometrics appointment, that is essentially coming and doing your fingerprints, doing photos, all that sort of thing. Now, that's the one point you would have to come over to Portugal, and we would organise all the appointments for you, but that's the one time you would have to come over here. Okay, and then it goes on around 15 months, 12 to 15 months. It's realistic for you to then get your card. Okay, but remember, your 5 years doesn't start from then. It starts from that period when we submitted it after about sort of 1.5 to 2 months. So do bear that in mind. Again, you don't need to know all these details. We'll talk you through the whole process. But as it says at the top, this is all managed by us. You don't do any of this, and we'll talk you through the whole process. So as I said, time to citizenship has been reduced. The Portuguese government recently announced that they would now count the processing of the 12 months to 18 months towards the 5 years. Your 5-year clock starts ticking, and you have the right then to live, to work and to study in any EU country. Once you have citizenship, you can live, work or study in any of the EU country. And we have a 100% success rate. We've actually submitted over 10% of the world's gold visa applications since the program was launched in 2012. So we've done a lot of these, and we know what it takes to get these through. And then once you've got your passport, well, that's brilliant. You've got the 4th best passport in the world, and that will give you visa-free travel to 190 countries and the full right to live, to work or to study in any of these EU countries. So you are effectively having 27 passports in one, because you can actually live and move throughout the EU and live, work and study anywhere. So it's a fantastic passport to have. So timeline to citizenship recap. Okay, so 0 to 3 months, that's when we get everything sorted out for you, get the investment set up for you. 12 to 18 months, you've got your golden visa approval. Okay, and the card is given to you. It's got a 2-year issuance. So in another 2 years, you renew it. The renewal costs are not high. They used to be, but Portugal's knocked them down. So you're talking a couple of hundred, I believe. It does change, but you're not talking a lot. And then it's renewed for another 2 years, and then we renew it for another 2 years, and that brings you up to when you need to essentially apply for the passport. At year 5, we can then apply for the citizenship, and we'll do that for you, and then you would have your passport, which is the ultimate goal for most people. And then once you've got your passport in year 5, you don't then need to have your investment anymore. So we look at structured 5-year investments with an exit for year 5 or year 6 when you've got the passport, because you don't need that investment anymore. Okay, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense on how it works. As I said, there is a backlog that's pretty much been cleared or is being cleared. So moving forward, this should be easier, but we need to be mindful of the changes that we know will be coming, and they will be. We know, as I said, more like the middle of September is when we're going to know, but we think that they might not end up being 5 years. It might be more like 7 or 10 years. At the moment, it still feels like you wouldn't have to be tax resident during that 7 years or 10 years, but we don't know that yet. So any new terms are certainly not going to be any better than what the terms are now. And that's why, if it's of interest for you, it's best to look now and not wait. Okay. So what is the investment criteria? This says for 2024, it's the same for 2025. So number one, what you can do is you can actually have a company that creates 10 jobs. Bit of a tricky one, that, because once you've got a company already, it's hard to move to Portugal, start a company and create 10 jobs and maintain those 10 jobs. So it's not a particularly popular way of doing it, but obviously if you already have your own business, it's an option that you've got. Next one, minimum 500,000 applied into research activities. So I'll make this clear. This is a donation. It's not an investment. So it's not so popular. You are basically donating 500,000 to the Portugal research activities, and in return, you will get your residency permit. Again, not very popular because it's not an investment. So a lot of our clients don't want to have good investments. That's not an investment, it's a donation. If you want a cheaper donation, you can actually pay 250,000 towards the arts, national heritage and culture. Again, not particularly popular because it's not an investment, that money is gone, but then it does give you a lower entry point. The most popular 2 ways of doing this are number 4 and number 5. Number 4 is you invest into a venture capital fund. So you transfer a minimum of 500,000 into shares or units in a non-real estate collective investment. So an investment fund that is not investing directly into property, okay? That is your 500,000. Now, what we can do, and I'll come on to this, is we can look at funds that can actually pay interest up front, so you don't have to pay your 500,000, you can pay less. There's loads of different ways, and I'll give you some examples. We have a number of them, but I'll give you some examples of the most popular. So you can do it for as little as 325, not 500,000, because you can have interest up front and even attach a loan to it if you wanted to. So you can have a lot lesser entry point. So that's one way of doing it. So that's a venture capital fund. It has to invest into predominantly Portuguese companies. There are about 35, 36 funds that are applicable that can be used, but you don't want to be doing something like that yourself, because if you get the wrong type of fund, it has to be regulated as well in Portugal. So you want to make sure that you're investing in the right type of fund. But obviously, being that we are a wealth manager, we know exactly what funds you can invest into, so we can go through that with you. And number 5, again, a really popular option, and I'll come on to why that is when you see some examples. You can transfer 500,000 for the reinforcement of the share capital of a Portuguese company, which maintains at least 10 jobs for a minimum of 3 years. So this is a company that's already up and running. You can invest into that, providing that your money is used to maintain at least 10 job positions for a minimum of 3 years. Now, we have companies, predominantly hospitality companies, that can do that. So they would take your money, they would invest it, and that would be set aside in order to maintain the job positions, and that would apply. So there are a number of ways we can do it with, and they're mainly hospitality companies, which I'll come on to, but there are a number of them that will do that in Portugal too. So number 4 and number 5 are the most popular routes to this. As I mentioned before, property unfortunately is no longer available, which used to be another, used to be 500,000, but that was a popular way of doing it. So the rules of an investment fund, as I mentioned before, so we talked about an investment fund. To qualify, the investment fund must meet the following criteria. So it's got to be approved and regulated in Portugal by the CMVM. Strict regulation, that is, in Portugal. As I say, Portugal is good for the regulation on investment products. So it's good to have that backing anyway, but it needs to be regulated in Portugal. The fund cannot directly or indirectly invest into real estate, which I'll come on to, okay? But that's it, because they removed real estate, they don't want people then to sort of find a workaround, if you like. The fund must invest at least 60% into Portuguese securities, which makes sense because the idea of this is for Portugal to encourage money into their country. So it makes sense to have 60% of that invested into Portuguese securities. And the investor must buy fund units for a minimum of 500,000. So that's the official minimum. As I say, we can structure it in a way that you actually have interest or investment money paid to you up front to take the risk out of it for you and give you the security with an exit strategy in year 5 as well. And the investment needs to be kept until the whole golden visa process, until you either get permanent residency or you get citizenship. So you can get permanent residency by living in the country after 5 years, but you can get your citizenship in 5 years, which is ultimately when you don't then need to have your investment. Okay, so I'm going to go through some examples of, now we do have a number of different ones, but I'm trying to pick out just the ones that are the most popular, okay? And hopefully it'll give you an idea, understand a little bit more about why they are so popular. So our number 1, I'd say at the moment, is the Sol Aqua Hotel and Spa in Albufeira, okay? So this is a hotel and spa that is already up and running. It's not been built, it's up and running, it's been functioning for a long time. Okay, it's a 4-star hotel, it's fully opened and operational. You can actually book it on booking.com at the moment as well. And this is a hospitality, we can do it as a hospitality fund, so we can do it as a fund option, or we can do it as a job creation option. So we can do it as either option with this particular company, which makes it good. There can be benefits of either way, but we can go through that with you. So there's around 60 apartments they have available, I think, in there at the moment. It's prime location. It's 3 minutes from the city centre, 3 minutes from the beach, 30 minutes from the airport as well. Now, the way this one works, so this will pay compensational income up front. So instead of having to invest 500,000, they will pay you 101,000 upfront compensational income. So it's basically 4% for 6 years. They paid you upfront. So if I get 4% a year, they paid it you upfront, which is 101,000 euros. So you only need 399,000. That 101's paid upfront, which gives you that 500,000. So only 399 required. Furthermore, you can include a loan option, which can actually bring that down to only 325. So you can actually include a 50,000 loan option, which we can go into more detail on how that will be paid back, but it lowers the entry point to only 325,000, which is obviously, a relatively low amount compared to what the actual 500,000 official amount is. But to make it, if you like, safe and secure and take the risk out of this, is that in year 6 there's a guaranteed buyback written into your contract. So in year 6, when you get your passport, there's a guaranteed buyback of 500,000 euros. So you know what you're going to get. You're going to get that 500,000 euros. You've made 4% for that year, which was paid to you up front. You only had to invest 399,000. It's really good. Now, not related to the gold visa, I don't want to over confuse this, but they also give you the option, instead of exercising that guaranteed buyback of 500,000, they actually give you the option, if you wanted to take full ownership of one of their 1-bedroom apartments within the complex, you can do that instead. So if property prices soared in Portugal, you have the option to say, actually, I don't want the guaranteed buyback, I'll keep that apartment. Now, that's up to you. I think most people probably would take the money back, but you have that option, and it allows you to hedge the investment, basically. So you either exercise the 500,000, or you can actually keep one of the apartments. What makes it interesting as well, you get 4 weeks per year complimentary stay. So within that resort, you can stay 4 weeks per year complimentary for no cost, which again, It's good in terms of if you've got to go to Portugal for to keep your 1 week per year, well, you've got somewhere free to stay when you're there as well. And the property is held as collateral with the option to buy 6 years. You've got property as collateral as well, so that gives you that added security. It's securing your investment as well. So really, really, really popular, this one. Probably the most popular one that we have is this, for obvious reasons. But we have other options available. Just quickly, that's where it is. The Sol Aqua is here. Anybody that knows Portugal is very close to these lovely beaches here, very close to the city centre as well, and I said close to the airport. So it's in a very desirable location. That's just some pictures of the hotel on there. That's sort of example of what the apartments look like. They're very well maintained, very nice. And as I say, instead of taking a 500,000 guaranteed buyback, you can keep one of those apartments, but you can stay in them 4 weeks per year for free. Another option that's particularly popular is the Navigator collection, which is a hospitality job creation option. Okay, so there's a job creation option, not an investment fund, and you do this via the Navigator collection company. So the Navigator is a group of different hotels throughout Portugal. So they've got over 10 hotels throughout Portugal, some big ones in there as well. Now this works slightly different. Your investment is 500,000, but you're paid compensational income of 175,000 up front. So you only require 325,000. So you'll get that 175,000 up front. So you don't need the loan. You only need 325,000, similar to the last option, but you get a buyback guarantee of 375,000, not the higher amount, because obviously you've invested less in the other options, but it gives you a lower entry point with no loan attached, which some people would prefer. But as I say, you've got a guaranteed buyback of 375. You've only invested 325, so you know exactly what you've made over those 5 years, and you know you've then got your passport. Again, very, very popular option for us. Now, I can't do the question and answers because we weren't able to go bring this out live. Anybody that registered for this webinar, what we're going to do is we'll send you a copy of this webinar. As I say, you've got my telephone number, you've got my email address, my website there as well. You can have a look on hullbornassets.com or hullbornpass.com. That's more information about us. I've also got my own website, which is worldcbi.com. You can use the QR code if you want to book in. As I stressed before, what you need to be aware of, I say relatively obviously, is that we know that something's going to be changing in September. We also know that when people sign up on certain conditions, they will be honoured. So if you've already signed up and you're already in the structure as it is now, when they make changes, it wouldn't affect you. So anybody that's liking what they're hearing, is better to do it now than to leave it until we know what's going to happen, which would be more like mid-September. So anybody that is interested, do reach out. We'll keep you updated. I'll carry on doing a webinar once a month, so if I hear anything different, I can let you know. But hopefully you found that useful. As I say, feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk about your own personal situation. We do free consultations, and just to see if it's the right thing for you. So thanks again for joining me. I will send this out to everyone that's registered. Contact me if you want to have the appointment. And as I say, it's been a pleasure, and I will keep you updated with any changes as I hear them on my webinars. Thank you.